The pen hovers above the signature line. $3 million. The sale of Hartwell estate. 6 generations of family history reduced to a number on a contract. Mr. Richard Hartwell's hand trembles. Not from age, but from something he can't name. Just sign here, Richard. Attorney Douglas Brennan says smoothly, tapping the page. Your nephew has worked very hard on this deal. The developers are waiting. I watch from the doorway, my 3-year-old daughter Grace pressed against my leg. She's supposed to be napping, but something woke her. Something that woke me too. An instinct I've learned not to ignore since I started working here 6 months ago. Richard's hand moves toward the paper. Grace breaks free from my grip and runs. Grandpa, don't sign it. Everyone freezes. My daughter, who calls every elderly person Grandpa, stands at Richard's knee, her small hands covering the contract. Don't sign the bad paper, she pleads, her voice urgent in that way toddlers have when they know something adults don't. Attorney Brennan's smile is indulgent. How sweet. But sweetheart, this is grown-up business. Bad paper, Grace insists. She looks up at Richard with absolute certainty. Mama, tell Grandpa. Bad paper. Richard sets the pen down. Looks at my daughter. Looks at me. Maya, he says quietly. Why is your daughter in my study? I'm so sorry, Mr. Hartwell. She must have woken up. No. He holds up a hand. Why does she think I shouldn't sign? The question stops everyone. Because of course a toddler can't know anything about real estate contracts. Can't possibly understand the intricacies of trust law or property development. Except Grace hasn't taken her hands off that paper. And I've learned to listen when something feels wrong. 18 months earlier, I meet Richard Hartwell 3 days after my husband's funeral. The employment agency calls it a live-in position with room for dependent. Translation: I can bring Grace because no one else will take a job this isolated. Hartwell Estate sits on 40 acres outside Greenwich, Connecticut. A mansion built in 1847, maintained through railroad money, oil money, banking money. Old wealth that doesn't advertise. Richard is 78. Widowed. His only son died in a car accident 20 years ago. His nephew Trevor manages the family trust and visits monthly. Richard lives alone except for a twice-weekly housekeeper who doesn't live on premises. He needs someone there. Someone who notices if he falls, if he forgets his medication, if he wanders at night like his doctor warned he might. Someone who won't judge him for growing old. Your daughter, Richard says when I arrive with Grace on my hip. How old? 18 months, sir. She's quiet. She won't disturb. I didn't ask if she'd disturb me. I asked how old. His voice is gruff, but his eyes are soft. I had a granddaughter once. She'd be about 20 now if. He stops. Never mind. The West Wing has connecting rooms. You'll have privacy there. Grace reaches for him. He takes her hand. I watch him transform. The loneliness cracking just slightly. Enough to let light in. That's when I know this job is more than employment. It's rescue. For both of us. The first 3 months are routine. I cook meals Richard actually eats. I manage his medications. I read to him from the newspaper because his eyes tire. Grace toddles through the mansion, delighted by the echoing halls and the garden maze and the library with its rolling ladder. Richard watches her like she's made of something precious. You're good with her, I tell him one afternoon. Grace has fallen asleep against his shoulder after he read her Goodnight Moon for the 3rd time. I should have been better with my own son, he says quietly. I worked too much. Missed too much. He grew up thinking money was more important than time. Is that why he... I stop myself. Why he drove drunk? Richard finishes. Yes. He was angry at me. Drinking at some club. Wrapped his car around a telephone pole and took his wife with him. Left their daughter in. Orphan. Your granddaughter. Eleanor. She was 4. Trevor. My nephew. He and his wife raised her. I tried to be involved, but Eleanor blamed me for her parents' death. Maybe she was right to. His voice breaks. She died of an overdose at 17. Pills and vodka. Trevor found her. I hold Grace tighter, understanding now why Richard looks at my daughter the way he does. She's not a replacement. She's a reminder that children deserve better than what he gave. You're doing better now, I say. Now is too late. But he's wrong. Because every day he plays with Grace, reads to her, teaches her to identify birds in the garden. He's healing something in himself. Becoming the grandfather he wishes he'd been. And Grace loves him, calls him grandpa without prompting, brings him dandelions, falls asleep in his lap. They save each other in small ways. Trevor Hartwell visits every month. He's 45, handsome in that country club way, always in expensive suits. He manages Richard's trust, investments, properties, business decisions. Richard signed power of attorney years ago when his memory started failing. Except Richard's memory doesn't fail. Not that I notice. He remembers everything Grace tells him, recalls conversations from weeks ago, navigates complex chess games against himself. Uncle Richard, Trevor says during his visits, you really should consider moving to assisted living. This house is too much for you. I have Maya. A maid isn't the same as professional care. Trevor's smile is warm, concerned. I worry about you. But I notice things. The way Trevor walks through the house cataloging paintings, furniture, artifacts. The way he brings documents for Richard to sign without explaining them fully. The way his eyes linger on the Tiffany lamps, the first edition books, the landscape paintings worth fortunes. The way he mentions developers interested in the property, mentions them casually, repeatedly. The estate is worth millions, Uncle. Just the land alone. You could live anywhere. Travel. Enjoy your final years. I am enjoying them, Richard says, watching Grace stack blocks. Trevor's jaw tightens. Just for a second. I see it. 6 months into my employment, I find Grace standing outside Richard's study one morning. She's completely still, unusual for a toddler. Her face is serious. Honey, what's wrong? Bad man. She whispers, pointing at the closed door. Mr. Trevor is visiting. He's not bad. He's Grandpa's nephew. Bad, she insists. Children sense things. I know this. Grace cried every time my husband's brother visited. The same brother who tried to contest the life insurance policy, claiming I married for money despite 8 years of marriage and a daughter. Grace knew. Before I did. So I listen. That night, after Trevor leaves, I check the papers Richard signed. There are 3 amendments to the trust, updates to beneficiary designations, estate planning revisions. I don't understand them, but I photograph them anyway. I find an attorney in town. Pro bono services. I explain I'm worried about my employer. The attorney reviews my photos. These documents are concerning, she says carefully. They significantly reduce Richard's control over his own assets. Transfer decision-making power entirely to Trevor Hartwell. And this one, she points, accelerates the timeline for estate liquidation upon Richard's death or incapacitation. What does that mean? It means Trevor could have Richard declared incompetent, sell everything, and control the proceeds. My stomach drops. Is that legal? If Richard signed willingly and was of sound mind, yes. But these are aggressive changes for someone whose mental capacity is supposedly declining. He's not declining. Then why is he signing these? I don't have an answer. Only suspicion. Only the memory of Grace saying, bad man, with certainty. Only the growing conviction that Richard is being manipulated by the only family he has left. 3 months later, Trevor arrives with attorney Brennan and a contract. They find Richard in the garden with Grace. Uncle, wonderful news. The developers have made an extraordinary offer. $3 million for the estate. You'd move to a luxury retirement community. Already selected one for you. All arrangements made. Richard's face goes pale. Sell Hartwell. It's the smart move. The house requires constant upkeep you can no longer afford. I can afford. Your liquid assets are minimal. The trust is tied up. This sale would ensure your care for life. I don't want to sell. Trevor's voice softens. Uncle Richard, we've discussed this. You agreed it made sense. Remember? Doubt crosses Richard's face. Did I? Of course. Trevor exchanges glances with the attorney. Your memory, Uncle. That's why we need to act now, while you can still make these decisions yourself. It's masterful. Gaslighting disguised as concern. Richard looks lost. Looks old suddenly. That's when they move to the study. When the contract appears. When Grace wakes from her nap and runs to stop something she doesn't understand, but knows is wrong. When everything changes. Richard's hand rests on the pen, but he's looking at Grace. Why is it bad paper, sweetheart? Grace's lower lip trembles. It makes you go away. Like my daddy. The words hit the room like a physical force. My throat closes. Grace doesn't talk about her father much. She was barely 2 when he died. But she remembers things. Remembers the day he left and didn't come back. Remembers loss even if she can't articulate it. Mr. Hartwell doesn't have to go anywhere. Attorney Brennan says smoothly. This contract ensures his comfort. May I see it? I ask. Everyone turns to me. I'm overstepping. I'm the maid. I'm supposed to bring tea, not question legal documents. Trevor's expression hardens. This is family business, Maya. Of course. I apologize. I move toward Grace. Come on, honey. Let's go. Wait. Breaks. She makes sure I would never. You did. You do. Every single visit. Richard's breathing is labored now. And I let you because I believed you loved me. Because you're all I have left. I do love, you love my estate. You've been waiting for me to die so you can sell it. But you got impatient, didn't you? Needed the money now. So you started working on me. Making me doubt myself. Convincing me I'm incompetent. That I can't manage. That I should just sign everything over and let you handle it. The truth fills the room like poison gas. Attorney Brennan clears his throat. Mr. Hartwell, these are serious accusations. Are they false? Richard asks Trevor directly. Trevor's silence is answer enough. Get out, Richard says. Both of you. Uncle, if you just get out of my house. The force of it sends Richard staggering. I catch him, ease him into his chair. Grace presses against his knee, her face worried. Trevor and the attorney exchange looks. They gather papers. Move toward the door. At the threshold, Trevor turns back. You're making a mistake, Uncle. That house is falling apart. You can't maintain it. Without proper financial management, you'll lose everything anyway. Then I'll lose it on my terms, Richard says. Not yours. When they're gone, Richard collapses into tears. Grace climbs into his lap. Pats his face. Don't cry, Grandpa. I'm sorry, little one. I'm just sad. Mama makes tea when people are sad. Richard laughs through tears. Your mama is very wise. I make tea. We sit in the study while Richard processes what just happened. What almost happened. Thank you, he says finally. For noticing. Grace noticed. No. He looks at me directly. You noticed first. You cared enough to check. To question. Most people in your position would have stayed quiet. I've stayed quiet before, I tell him. When my husband's brother tried to take our house. When doctors dismissed my concerns about my husband's chest pain the week before his heart attack. I've stayed quiet and regretted it. What changed? I look at Grace, humming to herself as she stacks Richard's chess pieces. She changed me. I couldn't protect her father. But I can protect her. And right now, she needs you in her life. So I'm protecting you too. Richard reaches across and squeezes my hand. Your family, Maya. You and Grace. You know that, right? I nod, not trusting my voice. That night, I research everything. The trust amendments. Trevor's financial situation. The developers interested in the property. What I find chills me. Trevor's investment firm is failing. He's over-leveraged in commercial real estate that's underwater. He needs cash desperately. The $3 million from Hartwell estate wouldn't all go to Richard's care. Most would pay Trevor's debts. The trust amendments give Trevor complete control. If Richard were declared incompetent, Trevor could sell everything, put Richard in a state facility, and pocket the difference. It's legal. Barely. But it's predatory. And it almost worked. I print everything. I call the attorney who helped me before. I build a case. Not for court. For protection. 2 weeks later, Trevor returns. Not with an attorney this time. Just him, looking exhausted. I need to talk to Uncle Richard, he says at the door. He doesn't want to see you. Please, Maya. 5 minutes. I should say no. Should protect Richard from further manipulation. But something in Trevor's face stops me. He looks broken. I let him in. Richard is in the garden with Grace. They're planting bulbs for spring, tulips and daffodils that will bloom long after this moment. Trevor stops at the edge of the garden. Watches them. He looks happy. Trevor says quietly. He is. He was never happy with me. Even when I was a kid. Even after I took in Eleanor. I hear it then. The wound beneath the greed. You raised his granddaughter. I say. That wasn't easy. It was impossible. She hated me. Hated my wife. We tried everything, but she just got angrier. More destructive. Then the drugs. Then, his voice breaks. I found her. Did he tell you? I found my cousin's daughter dead in her bedroom, and I couldn't save her. I'm sorry. Uncle Richard blamed me. Said I should have done more. Watched her closer. He was right. Trevor's hands shake. So I tried to prove I could handle things. Manage the estate. Make good decisions. Show him I wasn't the failure who let Eleanor die. But he never forgave you. No. And I never forgave myself. So I just managed. That's all I knew how to do. Manage money. manage properties, manage the slowly dying relationship with the only family I had left. He looks at me finally. I need the money, Maya. My firm is collapsing. I'm about to lose everything. But standing here, watching him with her daughter, he stops. I can't do it. I can't take the one thing that makes him happy. What are you saying? I'm saying you were right. All of it. The manipulation, the gaslighting, the greed. I told myself I was helping him, that he'd be better off somewhere with professional care. But I was helping myself. He pulls papers from his jacket. These reverse all the trust amendments. Return full control to Uncle Richard. I'll resign as trustee. He can appoint someone else. Why? Because Grace stopped me. His voice cracks. That little girl ran in and begged him not to sign. She protected him better than I ever did. Better than I protected Eleanor. You're not responsible for Eleanor's death. Yes, I am. Just like I'm responsible for what I almost did to Uncle Richard. He sets the papers on the garden bench. Give him these. Tell him I'm sorry. Tell him I'll understand if he never wants to see me again. He turns to leave. Trevor, I call. Maybe you should tell him yourself. Richard looks up as Trevor approaches. For a moment, neither man speaks. 6 decades of family history, grief, resentment, and regret sit between them like a wall. Then Grace runs to Trevor, holding up a bulb. Look, we're planting flowers. Trevor kneels, takes the bulb gently. That's beautiful, sweetheart. You helped too. Grace decides, grabbing his hand. She pulls him to the flower bed, places a small trowel in his hands, shows him where to dig. Trevor looks at Richard. Richard looks back. She's very bossy, Richard says quietly. Gets that from her mother. I can hear you. I call from the patio. Trevor laughs. It's shaky, but real. Uncle Richard, I need to apologize. Yes, you do. Everything Maya said was true. I was manipulating you, using your grief against you, planning to sell the estate and control your money. Trevor's voice breaks. I needed the cash for my firm. But more than that, I needed to prove I could handle things. That I wasn't the failure who let Eleanor die. Richard's face crumples. Trevor, Eleanor's death wasn't your fault. You said it was. After the funeral, you said I should have watched her closer. I was wrong. Richard stands, moves to his nephew. I was drowning in guilt over my own failures with her father. I lashed out at you because you were there and he wasn't. Because you tried when I didn't. Because you gave her a home when I couldn't face her. I failed her anyway. We both did. But that doesn't give me the right to punish you forever. And it doesn't give you the right to punish yourself by destroying what's left of our family. Trevor pulls out the reversal documents. I'm giving everything back. Full control. Full authority. I'll resign as trustee. Richard takes the papers, studies them, then slowly tears them in half. Trevor's face goes white. Uncle, I don't want you to resign. I want you to do the job properly. With oversight this time. With transparency. Richard's voice is firm. I want monthly meetings where you explain every decision. Where Maya reviews the documents before I sign them. Where Grace sits in my lap and reminds us both what actually matters. You trust me? After everything. I trust that you love me somewhere under all that grief and pride. I trust that you came back. That you couldn't go through with it. Richard grips Trevor's shoulder. And I trust that together, we can be better than we've been. Trevor breaks. 45 years of trying to earn love from a man he thought hated him, crashing down in the middle of a garden. Richard holds him while he cries. 2 men grieving the same girl, the same failures, the same lost years. Grace watches solemnly, then brings them both bulbs. Plant these. They make happy flowers. It's exactly what they need, something to do with their hands while their hearts crack open. Over the following months, things change. Trevor visits weekly now, not monthly. Sometimes with documents, sometimes without. He brings his wife, introduces her properly to Richard, to Grace, to me. He starts asking questions. How are you feeling, Uncle? Not, what do you need to sign? Richard softens. Shares stories about Trevor's father, Richard's brother, who died young. Shows Trevor photo albums from before grief made them strangers. They plant the rest of the garden together. Roses, lavender, vegetables in neat rows. Grace supervises, naturally. The estate stays in the family. Trevor's firm recovers slowly, with better practices and less risk. Richard updates his will, fairly, transparently. With legal review Maya arranges through the attorney who helped her. Everything is documented. Everything is witnessed. Everything is clean. And slowly, A family begins to heal. One Sunday, 6 months after the almost signing, I find Richard in the library. He's holding a photo of Eleanor, 4 years old, laughing in this very garden. I'm writing her a letter, he says. I do it sometimes. Things I wish I'd said. What are you telling her today? That I'm sorry. That I failed her and her father and everyone I loved. Because I didn't know how to forgive myself. That I almost did it again with Trevor. That your daughter saved me from destroying what little family I have left. He looks at me. You know what's strange? Eleanor would be Grace's age when her parents died. Maybe that's why Grace seems so familiar. Like God gave me a second chance to get it right. You're getting it right. Thanks to you. Thanks to Grace. I just listened when she said something was wrong. That's everything, though. Listening when the small voice tells truth the powerful want to ignore. Richard closes the photo album. I'm changing my will again. My stomach drops. Mr. Hartwell, Richard. Please, Maya. After everything, call me Richard. Richard, I don't want your money. I'm not leaving you money. I'm leaving you the West Wing. Legal ownership. So you and Grace always have a home. He holds up a hand at my protest. Trevor suggested it, actually. Said you'd refuse a cash inheritance, but you might accept security for Grace's future. I can't. You can. You will. Because I need to know that when I'm gone, someone who notices things, someone who asks questions, someone who cares more about people than property. I need to know that person has a stake in protecting this place. Tears blur my vision. Thank you. Thank you, Maya. For seeing me when I was invisible. For protecting me when I was vulnerable. For teaching an old man that family isn't just blood, it's who shows up when everything's falling apart. 2 years later, we gather in the garden for Grace's 5th birthday. Trevor and his wife bring a bicycle. Richard brings books, first editions, carefully selected. Mrs. Chun, the housekeeper who became my friend, brings homemade dumplings. We plant a tree together, Grace's tree, she calls it. An oak that will outlive all of us. As we dig, Richard tells stories. About his father planting trees here. About his son playing in this garden. About Eleanor, before grief took her. The stories aren't sad anymore. They're just true. Trevor listens, adding memories of Eleanor that make Richard laugh instead of cry. They found a way to remember her together, not as a tragedy, but as a little girl who deserved better than she got. Grace, covered in dirt, announces the tree is perfect. We agree. We water it. We take photos. Later, after cake and chaos, Richard pulls me aside. I saw the doctor yesterday. Regular checkup. My heart stops. And I'm fine. Healthy for 79. But Maya, he grips my hand. I need you to promise me something. When I do go, when it's really time, you'll protect Trevor from himself. You'll make sure he doesn't spiral into guilt and do something stupid. You'll remind him that he's loved. Richard, promise me. Because he'll need what you gave me. Someone who notices. Someone who cares. Someone who doesn't give up on family, even when family gives up on themselves. I promise. He hugs me. Not employer and employee. Family. Richard lives another 7 years. Long enough to see Grace start school. Long enough to teach her chess, gardening, and the stock market. Long enough to reconcile fully with Trevor, who becomes the nephew Richard always needed. Present, honest, loving. Long enough to die peacefully, in his own bed, in his own home, surrounded by people who treasure him. I keep my promise. When Trevor starts spiraling after the funeral, I'm there, reminding him of garden plantings and library conversations, and the day he chose love over greed. The estate passes to Trevor, legally and cleanly. The West Wing is mine, as promised. Richard's will includes generous provisions for Grace's education, managed by a trust one help oversee. Everything is transparent. Everything is fair. Everything is what Richard wanted. And in the garden, Grace's oak tree grows. On the 5-year anniversary of Richard's death, we gather for our annual remembrance. Trevor and his wife, now expecting their first child. Mrs. Chun, the attorney who helped me protect Richard. Grace, now 12, reading a poem she wrote about her grandpa. We plant bulbs around the oak tree, tulips and daffodils that return every spring like promises. He'd be proud of you, Trevor tells me, of what you built here, how you protected him. Protected all of us, really. Grace protected him. I just listened. She learned that from you. Noticing things. Speaking up when something's wrong. Trevor watches his niece by choice arrange flowers on Richard's memorial bench. You taught her the most important thing, that her voice matters, that even the smallest person can change everything by refusing to stay silent. I think about that day in the study, about Grace running to stop something she couldn't understand but knew was wrong, about how her instinct gave me permission to voice my own, about how children sometimes see truth adults are afraid to name. I just hope she never needs to fight like that. I say. She will, Trevor says. The world being what it is. But she'll know how. Because you showed her. That night, Grace asked me about the day she stopped Grandpa from signing the paper. I barely remember it, she admits. I just knew it was bad. How did I know? You felt it. Sometimes people, especially kids, sense things before understanding them. Did you sense it too? Yes. But I was afraid to say anything. You gave me courage. I was just a baby. You were brave. And you taught me that bravery doesn't require understanding everything. Sometimes it just requires trusting yourself enough to say this is wrong when everyone else says it's fine. She thinks about this. Is that why you always tell me to listen to my gut? Yes. Because your gut saved someone I love. And someday, it'll save you too. If this story touched you, if you've ever felt powerless watching someone vulnerable being manipulated, if you've ever noticed things people in authority want you to ignore, if you've ever been told you're too young or too inexperienced or too low on the ladder to question what you're seeing, I want you to tell me in the comments. Because the world needs people who notice, who ask questions, who trust their instincts even when everyone else says they're wrong. It needs people like Grace, who run toward danger when they should stay safe, because protecting someone matters more than following rules. It needs people like Maya, who photograph documents and consult attorneys and risk their livelihoods, because silence costs more than courage. And it needs people like Richard, who listen when the smallest voice in the room tells truth the powerful want buried. The maids of the world, the ones who clean up other people's lives and see what they leave behind. We notice things. We connect patterns. We understand that authority isn't the same as righteousness, that credentials don't equal truth, that sometimes the person who knows least about law knows most about love. And when we find the courage to speak up, we change everything. Not because we're heroes, but because we decided that the people we care for deserve protection more than we deserve safety. That decision, that terrifying, necessary decision to speak when silence is easier, that's how we save each other. One question at a time, one act of courage at a time, one little girl running to protect her grandpa at a time. If you believe that voices matter, that noticing matters, that the smallest person can stop the greatest injustice, subscribe. Share the story. Be the one who listens when someone says something's wrong. Be the one who believes them. Because somewhere, right now, someone needs you to notice what everyone else is ignoring. Someone needs you to be brave enough to ask why. Someone needs you to be the voice that says, stop, before it's too late. Be that person. The world is counting on it.